this video, we're going to talk about the mythology of Ronald Reed, a so-called janitor that invested his way to an $8 million fortune, and why you will not repeat what Ronald Reed did. When I say mythology, I'll explain in a video what I talk about. When you go ahead and look for numbers, you can't find any. You cannot find any numbers. You cannot find out what he invested. There's no record of the amount of money that he invested. Also, something else that is really interesting. Go to Ronald Reed, Google, and go to his Wikipedia page. And you will see on Wikipedia that he and his brother owned a gas station. There is virtually no details about the gas station or how long he owned it. All it is that he and his brother owned a gas station and they somehow sold it. I'm going to give you my thoughts on Ronald Reed. First of all, do you want to learn how to build a holding company, an operating company, and how to get massive lines of business credit? But more importantly, do you want to learn how to start, management, run, and organize an operating company where you can make money? This is one of the things that we have that's going on in the Corporate Citizen Playbook. And one of the things that you need to do is to go below and sign up for the phone call. What we do is we have a scheduled phone call before you can get into the Corporate Citizen Playbook to make sure that your thoughts and our thoughts match up before we get you into the program, which will constitute hands-on training. One of the things that's going to happen is I'm going to guide you personally through setting up your business, setting up your organization, and doing the things that you need to do to be successful. So go below, there's a little video for you to watch. Then there's a questionnaire. Let me say this, do not go in and half fill out the questionnaire. If you half fill out the questionnaire, that will disqualify you from entering into the Corporate Citizen Playbook, where you can learn how to make 6 figures for the rest of your life. The link's below, check it out. There's a lot of important details missing in this story that makes it very hard for you to fact check. And let's go with the facts. Did he die with $8 million? Yes, he did. He bequeathed it to a hospital and a library. That's one of the reasons he has a Wikipedia page. So we know that somehow in his life, his investments yielded $8 million and he left it to these entities, the library and the hospital. And his family and everyone was shocked at how much money he has. The first thing that we can get from this story is Ronald Reed was pathologically cheap. It was a story of he had a coat on and he had a safety pin inserted in his coat. At this time, he was worth millions of dollars. So he was pathologically cheap. But the way that you will get this story is that this was poor, humble man, just put money in the stock market. We don't know how much, which is really key, and I will really strongly get in that in a minute. He just was a humble man. He was a janitor, and he just put his little money in the stock market consistently and got to an $8 million fortune. First of all, there's something I call the stock market marketing department, which will induce you, which will tell you that you can invest money in the stock market and you can get rich. And then you will see all of these stories. But here's another question. How come there's only one Ronald Reed? How come there aren't dozens of janitors who became millionaires through investing? How come there's only one Ronald Reed? Let's get into the money. We know by virtue of the Wikipedia page that he was a millionaire. We know that he also owned a business. And trying to get details of this business ownership is extremely sketchy. It's extremely hard. There's nothing. I'm going to give you my synopsis of how Ronald Reed made the bulk of his money. Number one, Ronald Reed was pathologically cheap. He had money, but he would not spend it. Number two, what do we know about pathologically cheap people? When they come in money, they tend to hoard it. I feel, and this is just my opinion because it's very, very hard to find information about Ronald Reed, but I feel that the bulk of his money that led to this $8 million fortune came from when he was owning that service center. Because once again, he's pathologically cheap. He didn't spend money. No one knew he had money. He did not buy a nice car. He did not have a nice house. He was really, really cheap. And I submit to you that the vast amount of money that came from the service center, i.e. Ronald Reed was a business owner, not a regular run-of-the-mill person, but a business owner, and he put the majority of the profits into the market, and that's what yielded him this $8 million fortune. Now, I know, once again, it's kind of sketchy because you can't find nothing. You can't find anything about numbers. And here's the thing, and this is part of the reason that I feel that this was somewhat of a scam. He had a safe deposit box with the physical stock certificates in there. So there was information out there, there was information made available. And I also, if the man saved his stock certificates, I guarantee you there was a journal, I guarantee you, but none of this stuff was made public. Wasn't made public. And I'm gonna tell you why it wasn't made public. Let's go ahead and say Ronald Reed, very fastidious person, he kept a journal. And when he had that gas station, he was putting 100 or 200 or 300, or, let's go ahead and say he owned the gas station. And let's say Ronald Reed was putting $50,000 to $70,000 a year in the 70s, which equated is like putting in $200,000 or $300,000 today. That's where he got the money, and that's where this portfolio really began to grow. Because one of the things you would do, he bought something, there was one entry where he bought this one stock certificate or this investment. He spent $2,200, and by the time he died, this investment was worth like $10,000. That's something you can find when you research it. So that's not a big appreciation. What I feel is when he was the owner of this service station, he was putting incredible amounts of money into the market, and that's why he got to this. Because and they said this on the news station, if you invest $300 for 65 years, you can repeat this feat. Oh, really? If you go and look at the average return and the yield of the stock market during the years he was investing, it wasn't 10%, it wasn't 8%. There was some number of years where the stock market produced a 2% return. So he wasn't getting a consistent 8 or 10% return. This is why I know that he was putting a lot of money into the market. And when the market turned and we went to the stock market, where the stock market boom, where the technology boom, and he invested in these good hardcore companies, this is when the money started to explode. Because once again, go to the Google machine and start to look for ways that you can invest, and look for Ronald Reed, and you will find the memorial that the hospital put up for him, and you'll find all this other stuff. But you will not find any hard numbers. You will find pieces of stuff. But I guarantee you, this man owned a business. He put a lot of money in the market, and this is why they did not release the details of the safe deposit box. It was like he had an attorney, she knew some stuff, but she didn't know a lot. And this is one of the reasons that people are foolhardily investing in the stock market. Because let me go ahead and just give you a simple business advice that will yield you more money than you putting $300 per month in the stock market for the next 65 years. 65. I will be 65 9 years from now. 65. Because here's the thing. Let's say your name was John. And John, you came to this channel, you listened to it, and you got yourself out of debt, and you were actually cash flow positive, where to pay your living expenses, it didn't take up your whole paycheck, and you listened to this channel and you started a small eBay business. You kept your job And well, like when we say small, I'm talking about your eBay business was making like $1,000 a month for the first year, which was good for you because you kept your job and your job paid all your bills and you had money left over out of your paycheck from your job. So you went ahead, you built your eBay business. First year, $1,000 a month, you made $12,000 a month. Let's say your cost of goods were like $2,000 and you made $10,000 profit. And then you kept this up. Then next year, because you learned some tricks, next year, your monthly income went up to $2,000 a month. So you made $24,000. You still got your job. And your cost of goods was $7,000. $7,000 for the stuff you sold. So 7 from 24 is going to be $17,000. That was your profit. In your third year, you really cooking with gas. You learn a lot. You've got some steady supply sources. This year, you went crazy. You made $50,000. Your cost of goods was $15,000. So your profit was $35,000. Now, your third year, you still got your job. And now you're at the point where you have close to $50,000 in the bank after paying your taxes. And you're like, maybe I can quit my job. So you quit your job and then you go bananas on this eBay business, right? Then your first year full-time doing the eBay business, you make $100,000 and you spend $25,000 for the cost of goods. So your profit was $75,000. And then you just keep doing this and keep doing this and keep doing this to the point where you have reached, let's say year 10, and your gross sales are $500,000. And you spend $100,000 on your goods and your profit's around $380,000. And you do this in 10 years. Let me explain to you what's going to happen. Number one, your standard of living dramatically changes in those 10 years. You have cash money, you have a business, you have the nice car, you have the nice house, and you're starting to hire people. And let's just go ahead and fast forward 20 years in the future. You have bought and hired staff to run your eBay business, and your eBay business is doing $2 million a year. The cost to run this eBay business is about $500,000. So your profit is $1.5 million. This is the cost to rent the place. This is the cost to pay employees. This is the cost of goods. You could retire with a business that's giving you 7 figures. You made $1.5 million. You had to pay close to $600,000 in taxes, which left you $800,000. And you don't have to go to the office because you've hired staff and people to take your pictures, to do your listings and all this other stuff. How does that sound versus you needing to use a safety pin to close up your coat because you're too damn cheap to go out and buy a new coat? Once again, this mythology, because I keep hearing this stuff, but when you dive into the numbers, when you really start to look at it, there's some things that just don't make sense. And I guarantee you that Ronald Reed, when he was owning that gas station, he started making a lot more money, and that is the money that is the reason for his $8 million fortune. So and this is why you will never, even if you could invest, because many people last 10 years, last 11 years before the last 3 were really good for the stock market. But if you go ahead and do some research, you will see there's periods and times where the stock market doesn't do that well. It just doesn't. Knowing what I've known, based upon my research, the mythology, and this is why you're never, because here's the thing, and he lived to be 92. To invest for 65 damn years. That's crazy, because let's go ahead and look at it. He was 92 when he died, and let's take 65 from 92. That's going to leave us 27. So essentially, if he just started investing as a young man, once you start to really look at it, it sounds fantastical. It just sounds too good to be true, because He did have the 8 million, but I don't think it came from his janitorial income. I think it came when he owned the service station. He made a lot of money, and that's what he churned into the stock markets. And that's how we have this stock market legend, this stock market story. But once again, ask yourself this question. How come there's only one Ronald Reed? How come there aren't these Ronald Reeds all over the place? Since it's just so simple to invest and get to $8 million fortune by the time you're 92. Because it's not. And I guarantee you, you can invest more money and you will not get to that $8 million payday. It's not going to happen. All right, so for those of you who really want to enjoy life and you want to live your life, go below, get into the corporate citizen playbook. Now, here's one of the things that I have that's going on. Number one, this is not something you can do with no money. So you're going to need $10,000 to $30,000 before we even begin to schedule the phone call. So if you put yourself in that situation where you have money, you want to invest it, you want to build a business where you can start living life on your terms, this is your ticket. Just go below, get in that, and I will see you guys in the next video.